Chapter 5029. You are the White Maiden. Even though the Land family knew that the odds were stacked against them, they did not dare to disobey. After all, only the Mu family could open an opening for them to escape. They could only brace themselves to deal with the three lizard beasts in the north. Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan looked at each other. Lan Luoshan shook her head vaguely, and the two of them joined the battle. Fortunately, the Land family members had seen the attacking methods of the lizard beasts before. After setting up the spiritual energy shield, they were not afraid of their venom for a short period of time. They just needed to avoid being entangled by their tongues. On the other side, Mu Zian and the others used their full strength to deal with the three lizard beasts in the south. Mu Zian, Qi Tianhui, and Zhuang Shurchen were the targets that their families focused on nurturing. Naturally, they had many good things. They did not have time to hide anymore and took them out one by one. In addition, everyone was in a hurry to escape, and their potential was greater than usual. They actually killed three lizard beasts within a short period of time. Once the gap opened, everyone ran forward desperately, afraid that the other beasts would catch up to them. The Land family members also followed closely behind. Fortunately, the lizard beasts were not fast, so they were able to escape and catch up with the Mu family members. Even though they knew that the other three families did not have good intentions towards them, if they left them, they would only die in Supreme City. At this moment, Lan Luomu faintly hoped that Yun Chujio was still alive. After all, when Yun Chujio was still around, their situation was not so passive. However, was she still alive? Of course, Hei Xinjiu was alive. However, at this moment, this fellow was throwing a tantrum. On that day, Yun Chujio and the others were drunk from the smell of alcohol. A moment ago, the silver snake was the first to wake up. After he woke up, he crawled out of Yun Chujio's sleeve and called Yun Chujio a few times. However, Yun Chujio was too drunk to wake up. The silver snake had no choice but to bite the back of this guy's hand, which woke Hei Xinjiu up from the pain. Before Hei Xinjiu opened her eyes, she cursed, "Damn it, which bastard dares to bite me?" A certain being, Yun Chujio, opened her eyes and saw the silver snake coiled around her wrist. She picked it up and threw it into the wine vat. "You stinky snake. I told you to bite me. I'll kill you. I'll kill you." The certain being was so angry that he almost fainted. He shouted loudly, "Ugly girl, stop. Are you crazy?" Hearing that, Yun Chujio stopped moving and looked at the small silver snake in her hand in confusion. Then, she giggled foolishly. As he spoke, he started singing, "By Suzhen at the foot of Qingqing Mountain, cultivating in the cave for 1,000 years, Di Baiming was so angry that his head was buzzing. What snake demon, what lady by? Was this ugly girl crazy or stupid?" As he was fuming with anger, he heard Yun Chujio shout, "Ah, I remember now. You are not a snake demon, you are my gigolo." Di Baiming finally heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. Fortunately, he had returned to normal. However, he was obviously happy too early because he heard Yun Chujio continue, "Gigolo, hee, I heard that there are 2 snakes. Let me take a look." The silver snake immediately stiffened and used all its strength to break free from Yun Chujio's hand. Fortunately, Yun Chujio was drunk and did not have much strength. Otherwise, the small silver snake would be in a tragic situation. Chapter 5030. Snake Wine. The small silver snake was embarrassed and angry, but it knew that it could not reason with Yun Chujio at the moment. It was just that it was a snake now, so it could not use the storage ring. Otherwise, it could use cold water to sober up the ugly thing. The small silver snake looked around. There was almost nothing else in the wine cellar except for the wine jar. How could it sober up the ugly girl? Just as the little silver snake was worrying, he saw Hei Xinjiu staggering towards him and reaching out to grab him. The little silver snake had no choice but to dodge desperately in the wine cellar. "Little boy, don't run. Come, I'm very gentle. I won't hurt you," Hei Xinjiu said slyly. The little silver snake naturally wouldn't believe her nonsense. He made up his mind that he would never let this guy drink wine again. Hei Xinjiu caught the silver snake for a while, but she did not catch it. Instead, she tripped over the wine jar. The guy blinked his eyes and started crying. "Gigolo, my gigolo has run away." Why do I always have to be separated from the gigolo? Why can't the gigolo stay by my side? Ooh, I remember now. The gigolo has lost his memory. The gigolo doesn't love me anymore. I finally saved the gigolo, but he forgot about me. You white-eyed snake. You snake shimmy. You heartless snake. Ooh, my heart hurts so much. My heart is about to break into pieces. I'm most likely going to die. The silver snake heard Yunchujia's words and saw the tears rolling down Yunchujia's face. It felt a throbbing pain in its heart and could not help but jump to her side. Ugly girl, are you all right? However, the next moment, he was held in Hei Xinjia's hand. Ha! You stupid snake, you've been tricked, haven't you? Miss is going to check your body now. Don't be afraid. The silver snake was so angry that it almost died. This ugly girl was still full of evil when she was drunk. She was completely evil. It wanted to struggle, but Yun Chujio was obviously on guard. It struggled a few times but could not break free. There was only one thought in its mind. It was over. It was going to lose its moral integrity. Hei Shinjio did not care what he thought. She said proudly, "Little guy, run. Let's see where you can run to this time." The guy was holding the head of the silver snake with one hand and the tail of the silver snake with the other. At the critical moment, the guy suddenly became a bit shy and gritted his teeth. "I need to drink some wine to boost my courage." Thus, this fellow squatted on the ground and lowered his head to drink the wine in the jar. Then this fellow was miserable. Previously, just the smell of alcohol alone could make her pass out, and the wine in this jar was extremely rich. This fellow had just taken a sip when he once again passed out with his face facing the sky. The miserable silver snake was accidentally thrown into the wine jar. The silver snake's heart was like a dog's. Would he, a dignified overlord, become the snake in the snake wine? The silver snake hurriedly held its breath. It crawled out of the wine jar with great difficulty, but it had more or less absorbed the smell of alcohol. It was so miserable that it passed out. Before it passed out, a certain lord once again made up his mind. He was determined not to let the ugly girl drink again, even if it was the wedding night. When he thought of the wedding night, he remembered. Tanyuan, and two bloodlines appeared on his nose. Chapter 50-31 Rope Ladder. Hei Shinjio was sleeping soundly in the wine cellar, while Mu Zian and the others were desperately trying to escape. Several wild beasts were chasing closely behind them, and the sky-shaking roars made people's hair stand on end in the middle of the night. The group did not bother to distinguish their direction and just ran forward, afraid that they would be caught by the wild beasts if they were half a step slower. The group originally thought that the wild beasts would disappear as usual at daybreak, but they were disappointed. Even though the sun was high up in the sky, the wild beasts had no intention of hiding. They continued to chase after them crazily. Zhuang Shurchen panted as he said, "We can't go on like this. Even if we're tired, we'll die of exhaustion. We should run towards the west. After we enter the levitation layer, we might be able to catch our breath." The others did not have any objections and immediately followed him to run towards the west. Among these people, Lan Luofang's spiritual power was the lowest, so she gradually fell behind. She saw the approaching wild beast, and her heart was filled with panic. Her spiritual power was basically exhausted, and she could not run anymore. She took out pills to replenish her spiritual power and stuffed them into her mouth, but the amount of spiritual power she could replenish was really limited. There was no way to increase the distance between her and the wild beast. Was she going to die here? It would be great if little Jio was here. She would definitely have a way to escape. When she thought of Yun Chujio, her heart skipped a beat. Yun Chujio had once stuffed a few bottles of pills into her mouth. The labels on the bottles were crooked. Some were for detoxification, some were for stopping bleeding, and some were for replenishing her spiritual power. Lan Luofang did not have time to think too much. She took out the bottle that was labeled for replenishing her spiritual power, poured out a pill, and stuffed it into her mouth. The medicinal pill melted in her mouth, and in an instant, spiritual power was injected into her dantian. Lan Luofang was overjoyed, and immediately used all her strength to chase after the people in front of her. Only then did Lan Luofeng realize that the medicinal pill that she had swallowed previously actually had golden patterns. She had never heard of medicinal pills with golden patterns. Where did little Gio get it from? Everyone had originally thought that Lan Luofeng would definitely die in the end. Who would have thought that Lan Luofeng would actually be able to catch up to her alive? Moreover, it seemed that her physical strength and spiritual power were very abundant. Everyone thought that Jiashi had given her some high-grade spiritual power replenishing pill, so they didn't have much doubt. Finally, everyone arrived at the bottom of the levitating layer. When they saw the towering, imposing buildings in front of them, they were all overjoyed. It was said that there was a square outside the first level of the levitation layer. It was relatively safe up there. As long as they could reach that square, they would have some time to catch their breath. However, even the first level of the levitation layer was more than 100 feet above the ground. It was also forbidden to fly here. If they wanted to climb up, they could only climb up a rope ladder that hung down from above. The worst thing was that the pack of wild beasts had already caught up. Qi Tianhui and Zhuang Shurchen followed closely behind. The Mu family and the other two families also squeezed to the front, leaving the Lan family members at the outermost edge. The Lan family members were angry and resentful. However, they knew that even if they did not listen to Mu Zian and forcefully climbed up the rope ladder, they would still be killed by the other three families when they reached the top. Those wild beasts stared at them with their scarlet eyes as they got closer and closer. Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan looked at each other. Lan Luoshan fiercely pushed Lan Luoyen in front of her while Lan Luohan pushed Lan Luoji in front of him. Then, the two of them jumped towards the rope ladder. Chapter 5032 had no place to stand. Lan Luoyen and Lan Luoji were pushed several feet away. Fortunately, they had set up their spiritual energy shields in time. Otherwise, they would have been poisoned to death by the lizard beast at the front. The two of them rolled and climbed up. They turned around and ran. The other members of the Lan family had already reached the bottom of the rope ladder. However, Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan pulled the rope ladder up after they climbed up. Lan Luoshan held the rope ladder in her hand and said to Mu Zian, who was still in shock, "Sister Zian, this way, the wild beasts will not be able to climb up the rope ladder." Mu Zian's expression changed a few times. Just as she was about to say something, Zhuang Shurchen said, "What Miss Luoshan said makes sense. If we don't put away the rope ladder, it will be bad if the smaller wild beasts climb up." Mu Zian didn't say anything else, but Qi Tianhui said, "Tsk, the two of you are really ruthless. In order to survive, you don't even care about the lives of your companions." Lan Luohan's eyes were slightly cold. Lan Luoshan gently tugged at him and said gently, "We are also looking at the big picture. There's nothing we can do about it." Qi Tianhui curled his lips and didn't say anything. Anyway, the lives of the Lan family members had nothing to do with him. As for these two people, they would be their scapegoats sooner or later. The Lan family members naturally hated Lan Luohan and Lan Luoshan to death. However, the most important thing now was to escape. However, dozens of wild beasts had blocked all the directions. They had no way to escape. Lan Luomu gritted his teeth and took out a few packets of medicinal powder. "Everyone hold your breath and raise your spiritual energy shields." Everyone was now like a grasshopper on a rope. If one more person lived, they would have more strength. Therefore, Lan Luomu specially reminded everyone. Everyone held their breath and raised their spiritual energy shields. Lan Luomu threw the powder at the wild beasts. The poison powder was bought by the second elder at a high price. He specially gave it to Lan Luomu so that he could use it to save his life. Lan Luomu felt that although the poison powder might not be able to kill the wild beasts, it could at least give them a chance to escape. However, he never dreamed that the poison powder would have no effect on the wild beasts. Instead, it angered the wild beasts. Lan Luomu was instantly dumbfounded. At this moment, Lan Luofeng shouted, "Watch me!" Following her voice, Lan Luofeng threw out a few large sacks. These were also given to her by Yun Chujio, and they were filled with chili noodles. The wild beasts thought that Lan Luofeng was still throwing poison, so they used their claws to slap the sacks with disdain. The chili noodles in the sacks instantly flew in all directions. The wild beasts choked and cried. The land family members didn't have time to think about it. They took advantage of the gap between the wild beasts and ran out. Lan Luma's heart was like a dog crying. The poison he bought at a high price was useless, but Lan Luofang's chili powder was very effective. It was like seeing a ghost. When the people on the levitating layer saw that the land family members had actually used the chili powder to escape, they were all dumbfounded. However, they felt that even if the Lan family members escaped temporarily, it would be useless. Those wild beasts would eat them sooner or later. Lan Luomu and the others ran as fast as they could because they knew that once those wild beasts recovered, they would definitely intensify their pursuit and kill them. However, where could they escape to? The rope ladder on the levitating layer had been pulled up. They had no way to go up at all. The surface streets were full of danger, and there was no place for them in the great city. Chapter 5033. We're going to find little Jiao. Lan Luofang suddenly said, "We're going to find little Jiao. Only little Jiao can save us." "What nonsense are you talking about? Yun Chu Jiao is already dead. Where are we going to find her?" Lan Luoyen said angrily. However, because it was Lan Luofang who saved everyone this time, she liked Lan Luofang a little. Lan Luofang said with certainty, "Little Jiao is so smart that she won't die. Something must have gone wrong. Let's go to the house where she went missing and we will definitely find clues." Lan Luoqing snorted coldly, "Let's not talk about whether she is still alive or not. This place is 3 days away from the house where she went missing. I'm afraid we won't live until then." Lan Luofang bit her lip. "No matter what, I have to go back and look for little Jiao. If it weren't for little Jiao, we wouldn't be able to leave this place alive." After saying that, Lan Luofang directly ran in the direction she came from. Lan Luomu and Lan Luoji looked at each other and chased after Lan Luofang. Seeing this, the others could only follow her. Now they could only try their best. However, everyone's physical strength and spiritual power were limited after all. After running for a while, they could not run anymore. Although the wild beasts slowed down slightly, their physical strength was much better than theirs. The distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. Lan Luofang recalled that Yun Chujiao had burned the fox wild beast to death. She felt that these wild beasts should be afraid of fire, so she said to everyone, "We passed through the house. Lan Luoyen, you are in charge of setting the fire. Perhaps you can stop them for a while." Lan Luofang's words were now a life-saving straw. Lan Luoyen was not in the mood to disagree with her, so she immediately transformed into a fire butterfly. The fire butterfly already had some initial intelligence. It specially picked some combustible things to light up. In an instant, the house they entered was on fire. Those wild beasts seemed to be afraid of the fire, so they hesitated. Some of them even tried their best to spray poison on the volcano, as if they wanted to put out the fire. Everyone was overjoyed. No matter what, they could at least slow down the speed of these wild beasts. However, they did not dare to set a large area on fire. After all, if the fire spread too far, they would also be burned to death. Thus, the Lan family members set fire to the restaurant where Yun Chujiao disappeared. "Lan Luva, I told you that Yun Chujiao is definitely dead," Lan Luoyen muttered. Lan Luofang shook her head. Little Jiao was full of evil. Even if she died, she wouldn't die so quietly. She definitely wasn't dead. However, how did this person disappear into thin air? At this moment, everyone heard someone say carelessly, "Lan Luin, who did you say was dead? Are you asking for a beating again?" Everyone followed the voice and looked over. Who was the one who spoke if not Yun Chujiao? However, how did she appear out of thin air? Hei Xinjiao naturally did not appear out of thin air. 3 days ago, after this fellow passed out from being drunk again, the little silver snake also passed out due to nosebleeds. As the wine was too strong, even though Hei Xinjiao only took a sip, she slept for 3 days. As the little silver snake was thrown into the wine jar, it struggled to get out, but it was still very drunk. Fortunately, Peach Blossom was only drunk from the smell of alcohol. When the Lan family came in, Peach Blossom was awakened. Peach Blossom together call with drag, finally Hei Shinjio to wake up. Chapter 5034 took action. One was worth two, Master. Use some water to wake yourself up. Someone is coming, Peach Blossom said with her spiritual sense. As she had slept for a long time this time, Hei Shinjio was clearer than before. She immediately poured a basin of cold water on herself and shivered a few times. She felt much more awake. When she saw the small silver snake lying beside the wine jar, the corner of her eyes twitched because she saw two dried blood stains under the nose of the small silver snake. Hei Shinjio had been too drunk before, so she had no impression of her crazy drinking behavior. When she saw the small silver snake like this, she cursed in her heart, "Phooey. Could this pervert have taken advantage of her drunkenness to do something immoral?" However, she had no time to settle the score with Beiming now. She put the peach blossom into her spirit beast bag, the small silver snake into her sleeve bag, and then put all the wine in the wine cellar into her storage ring. However, this fellow discovered that most of the wine jars in the wine cellar were empty. This fellow almost died from anger. She thought that she had struck it rich, but it turned out to be an empty joy. Fortunately, some of the jars were full, or else she would have cried herself to death. This wine cellar was hidden under a room. Yun Chujio tilted her ear to listen for the sounds outside. When she heard that it was the Lan family, she heaved a sigh of relief in her heart, and only then did she reveal herself. When Lan Luofang saw Yun Chujio, she could not help but be surprised and happy. She ran over and grabbed Yun Chujio's arm. "Little Jio, it's great that you're all right." Lan Luoyan pouted and muttered, "Sure enough, a scourge lives for 1,000 years. Yun Chujio could not be bothered with her. She asked, "Are you guys back to look for me? Where are the others?" This fellow did not know that she had slept for a few days. She thought that she had only slept for a short while. When she heard Lan Luofang's story, she realized that she had been drunk for a few days. Just when she was in a daze, Lan Luoyan sniffed. "Why is there such a strong smell of alcohol?" Lan Luoyan sniffed and her gaze fell on Yun Chujio. "Good. Yun Chujio, you've been hiding and drinking these few days. You're our captain. Are you worthy of our ancestors' trust?" Yun Chujio touched her nose guiltily. Even though she had changed into a new set of clothes, the wine in the wine cellar was too strong, so it was still stained with the smell of alcohol. To be honest, she did not expect to be drunk for so many days just by opening the wine jar. This time she was careless. However, this guy wanted to lose without losing, so he snorted and said, "Now you admit that I'm the captain? That's not what you said before." Yun Chujio decided to redeem herself as the captain. She waved her claws and said, "You guys run first. I'll hold them off." Lan Luofang said worriedly, "Little Jio, there are more than 30 wild beasts. Can you handle them?" Don't worry. The captain will take care of them. You guys run first. If I can't handle them, I will chase after you," Yun Chujio said heroically. Lan Luoyan curled her lips. No matter what, this Yun Chujio was at least much stronger than that damn Lan Luoshan. The bitch. She thought she was a good person, but in the end, she actually stabbed them in the back. If there was a chance, she would definitely kill that bitch. Immediately, the Lan family members ran away in a hurry, leaving only Hei Shinjio alone. Hei Shinjio jumped onto the wall, nibbling on a meat bun while looking at the approaching wild beasts in the distance with a smile. Chapter 5035. Goibutsao seeing the beasts getting closer and closer, Yun Chujio waved her claws and said, "Stop. All of you stop right now. Otherwise, I won't be polite." The beasts were very angry because they hadn't been able to catch up to Lan Luofang and the others. Now that they saw Yun Chujio threatening them shamelessly, they were instantly enraged. The wild beasts let out all kinds of horrifying cries and pounced on Hei Shinjio. Hei Shinjio shouted, "Stop. All of you stop. I have something important to tell you." One of the wild beasts said sinisterly, "Jie, something important? Eating you is the most important thing. Prepare to die." "Don't, I really have something important to tell you. There are so many of you, are you only afraid of me?" Yun Chujio said with a smile. The wild beast snorted. Okay, tell me. What is it? Yun Chujio curled her lips. Listen carefully. The important thing is that you are too ugly. Too ugly. But it's true. You don't have a mirror. Otherwise, how would you have the courage to live? The wild beasts were almost angered to death. They roared and pounced on Yun Chujio. Hei Shinjio directly jumped onto the top of the wall of another house. As she ran, she shouted, "Idiot! Ugly monster! Chase me! Come chase me!" Those wild beasts naturally would not let her go. They chased after her relentlessly. Yun Chujio deliberately led this group of demonic beasts away from the direction where the Lan family members were escaping. This fellow ran as he pondered. Mu Zian and the others had already reached the levitating lair. She had to quickly clean up these wild beasts so that the good things would not be snatched away by Mu Zian and the others. Sigh, as expected, drinking makes things worse. I'll never drink again. Not only did I delay the proper business, I even let the gigolo take advantage of me. What a huge loss. If a certain someone knew what this guy was thinking, he would probably be fuming with anger. Take advantage of me? His integrity was almost ruined in her hands, okay? Yun Chujio felt that she was far enough from Lan Luofang and the rest, so she stopped and said to the group of wild beasts, "You really don't know what's good for you. You actually dare to chase me? Today, I'll let you see my Goei Batsao." Goei Batsao proudly shook its leaves, thinking to itself, "Let's see. Gold will shine sooner or later." Now that the stupid girl knows how powerful it is, she hurriedly released it. Actually, Goei Batsao was thinking too much. Although Goei Batsao had displayed its brute strength last time, Hei Shinjio did not have too much hope for it. After all, these wild beasts were not those motionless stones, so Goei Batsao might not be able to gain any advantage. The reason why it was let out was to divert the attention of the wild beasts, so that she could use small flames to sneak attack. However, Goei Batsao did not know. This fellow was feeling pretty good now. It was waving its leaves so hard that they were about to fly away. Yun Chujio saw how cocky it was and could not help but twitch the corner of her mouth. She scolded, "Don't be so cocky. Go on. Whip them all away." After saying that, Yun Chujio hid behind Goei Batsao and prepared to launch a sneak attack. Goei Batsao felt that it was not appropriate for it to send these wild beasts flying in a rough manner. Therefore, it decided to make a beautiful pose, such as a white crane flapping its wings. However, this fellow did not notice that Hei Shinjio was hiding behind it. She was in a good position, and Hei Shinjio was also sent flying by it. Moreover, the direction of the flying was coincidentally in the middle of the wild beasts. Chapter 5036. It was in trouble. There was only one thought in Hei Xinjia's mind. She wanted to tear that damned Goei Batsao into pieces. Goei Batsao was also dumbfounded. It was over. It was in trouble. It was in big trouble. It was 80% certain that it would not be able to see the sun tomorrow. Goei Batsao wanted to save Hei Shinjio, but the distance was too far. It had no way of using its leaves to catch Yun Chujio. The group of wild beasts were also dumbfounded. Was this brat's spiritual beast having a stroke? Why would it help them take care of that brat? No matter what, this brat was dead meat. Several wild beasts opened their mouths wide and stretched out their claws, ready to swallow Hei Shinjio, who had fallen down. However, Yun Chujio did not fall down. Instead, a few sacks of chili noodles fell down. Although the wild beasts had suffered a loss once, they were still caught in the crossfire. Each and every one of them was choked with tears and tears. It turned out that at the critical moment, Yun Chujio had an idea. She threw out a sticky thread and wrapped it around a protruding piece of wood in the pavilion next to her. Only then did she not fall into the herd of wild beasts. Goei Batsao saw that Yun Chujio was safe and sound, and it heaved a sigh of relief in its heart. With the intention of atoning for its sins, it did not care about its posture anymore. It began to use its leaves to whip the wild beasts. As the wild beasts were snot-covered with tears due to the chili, they were not aware of it. A few wild beasts were hit by the leaves of Goei Batsao, and their huge bodies were instantly sent flying. However, after the wild beasts regained their senses, Goei Batsao was not as relaxed. The Goei Batsao quickly dimmed and then dissipated. The strange grass in its dantian was secretly resentful. If it had not condensed 2 drops of juice for that fiend, how could it be afraid of these dregs? Most importantly, it had caused trouble this time. That black-hearted little girl would definitely not let it off. Why was its life so miserable? Seeing that the Goei Batsao had dissipated, Yun Chujio condensed her spiritual power again and released it. Although this fellow's brain was not very good, it had brute force and could be of help. They raised all the pavilions next to them to the ground, so that Yun Chujio had no place to hide. Yun Chujio immediately released all the dumb cuties. Training soldiers for 1,000 days and using soldiers for a while, these foodies should also make a contribution. The silly cuties took the lead one by one, especially the little salamander. It wanted to show off in front of the peach blossoms and crush Buttface, so it was working hard. Although it was forbidden to fly here, and the little salamander could only fly about 30 feet high, those beasts seemed to be more afraid of fire-type attacks. The little salamander was like a fish in water. Buttface secretly hid in the distance and watched, cursing in his heart. If it didn't use its cultivation to transform into a physical form, how would this little bug be able to show off here? Just wait and see. Sooner or later, Buttface would blind his and the female's snobbish eyes. Hei Shinjio did not stay idle either. She constantly used heavenly lightning, small flames, and purple needles to launch sneak attacks. The wild beasts seemed to be quite afraid of Yun Chujio's methods. In addition to the silly cuties and the perverted Guai Chao, they gradually had the intention to retreat. Therefore, after a few wild beasts were killed, the rest of the wild beasts fled in panic. Yun Chujio did not chase after them. It was not like she had to kill them. The most important thing now was to hurry to the levitation layer. Yun Chujio put away the silly beasts. She thought for a while and released the giant rabbit. Then she rode the rabbit to find Lan Luofeng and the others. Chapter 5037. Even if the wall was not convinced, she would still be convinced. Hei Shinjio sat on the giant rabbit and began to curse at the Guai Chao in her dantian. Go away, Ba. I didn't realize that you were so cunning. You want to kill me, you ungrateful grass. I thought you had changed, but you are still the same. Just you wait, I won't forgive you. Guai Chao formed its leaves into the shape of a heart and kept begging for mercy. If it was not for the fact that its roots could not move, it would have knelt down and begged for mercy. In all conscience, it just wanted to pose like a badass. Who would have thought that it would send this wretched girl flying? If it had known this would happen, it would not have been so smug. Hei Shinjio cursed fiercely again before temporarily letting go of Guai Chao. Of course, she also knew that Guai Chao must have done it unintentionally. After all, no matter how stupid it would not do such a stupid thing. However, Go Weiba tail was getting more and more floaty. She had to teach it a lesson. Hei Shinjio did not know that there was a mini Goei Batsao lying on her hair at this moment. It was waving its small leaves arrogantly. It was simply happy. Last time, Guai Chao had saved up a small amount of money and wanted to take a stroll outside. However, in order to break Di Baiming's white seal, it had used up all its spiritual power. Now that this guy had saved up a lot of money, he naturally would not let go of this good opportunity. Therefore, after Yun Chujio withdrew her spiritual power, this guy pretended to disappear, but in fact he became very small and hid in Hei Xinjia's hair. Hei Shinjio knew nothing about this. She quickly found Lan Luofeng and the others on the giant rabbit. Although Lan Luofeng and the others were far away, they could still vaguely hear the loud noise. They could not help but worry for Yun Chujio. Even Lan Luoyen was a little worried. It was not that she had changed her opinion of Yun Chujio, but she now saw Hei Shinjio as a life-saving straw, so she naturally did not want anything to happen to her. When everyone saw Hei Shinjio coming over on a rabbit, they could not help but heave a sigh of relief. However, when they saw this guy's strange mount, their faces froze. What the hell was this thing? A rabbit? There did not seem to be such a large demonic rabbit species in the Chongshao continent, right? Little Jiao, where are the wild beasts? Lan Luofeng asked. They were all beaten away by this captain. Let's go, they won't dare to come back for a while. Yun Chujio said smugly. The others didn't say anything and immediately followed Yun Chujio to the floating layer. Yun Chujio saw that all of them were exhausted and asked, "Don't you have any spirit beasts to carry you?" Lan Luofeng and the others all shook their heads. The cultivators of the heavy cloud continent paid attention to their own cultivation and rarely relied on external things, so most people didn't have any spirit pets. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "You guys are really poor. How about this? I can rent out spiritual beasts to you for 10,000 high-grade spirit stones a day. Are you guys going to rent them out?" Everyone, they were all convinced by how greedy they were. If even the wall was not convinced, they would be convinced by her. However, they were all so tired that they were about to smoke. Not to mention 10,000 high-grade spirit stones, even 100,000 was something they were willing to give up. Thus, they all agreed. Yun Chujio immediately got Mao Qiu to pick 7 relatively fast and large snowstorm-back wolves from the Great Void Mystic Realm. After the contract was signed, she handed them over to Lan Luofeng and the others. Although the grade of the snowstorm-back wolves was not high, it was not a problem to use them as a means of transportation. Lan Luofeng and the others did not have the time to nitpick that the grade of the spirit beasts was too low. One by one, they climbed onto the back of the wolves and began to meditate. Chapter 5038 Are You in Love with Me? With their spiritual pets, Lan Luofeng and the others could rest and not delay their journey. They could not help but feel a little emotional. It seemed that the old ancestor had a reason to let Yun Chujio, the troublemaker, be the team leader. Yun Chujio had passed out from being drunk for a few days, so she was not sleepy at all. She hummed a little song and led the way. Seeing that Lan Luofeng and the others were already asleep, she took out the small silver snake from her sleeve pocket. Seeing that the small silver snake had not woken up yet, she poked his head with her hand and muttered, "You pervert! I'll teach you a lesson when you wake up." At this moment, the small silver snake's vertical pupils opened. Its cold and fierce gaze almost scared Hei Shinjio so much that she fell off the rabbit. The snake pretended to be calm and said, "Why are you staring at me? Tell me, did you take advantage of me after I passed out?" A certain lord was amused when he heard that. "Ugly girl, don't you know what you have done? If you don't have a good taste in alcohol, don't drink like others. You are not allowed to touch a single drop of alcohol in the future." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. "What did she do?" "She didn't do anything." "Humph! Stop calling me a thief. Let me ask you, why is your nose bleeding again? Did you take advantage of me when I was drunk?" A certain someone was so angry that he was about to explode. Take advantage of her? He was the one who was almost raped, okay? A certain someone wanted to tell her the good deed that Hei Shinjio did when she was drunk, but it was a little hard to say. Finally, he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. "What about the matter of you throwing me into the wine jar?" Hei Shinjio was stunned at first, then she burst into laughter and almost fell off the giant rabbit's back. This guy's laughter woke Lan Luofeng and the others up. Lan Luofeng asked in confusion, "Little Jiao, why are you laughing? What happened?" Yun Chujio finally stopped laughing and said, it's nothing. I just remembered something interesting. You guys go back to sleep and rest up. We still have a tough battle to fight." Lan Luin mumbled crazy and went back to sleep. The others also shook their heads helplessly and fell asleep one after another. "You mean that I almost turned you into a snake in the snake wine? Ha, this joke is enough for me to laugh at for the rest of my life." A certain being, Hei Shinjio, chuckled a few times in a low voice before she was stunned. "That's not right. Then why is your nose bleeding?" A certain being's body stiffened slightly before he replied coldly, "I knocked it in the wine jar." Hei Shinjio did not know that a certain being had actually learned how to open his eyes and lie. It was rare for this fellow to feel a little pain in his conscience. He used his hand to gently stroke the small silver snake's head. "I'm sorry. I promise I won't drink anymore. Actually, it's not my fault this time. Who knew that just the smell of alcohol could make people drunk?" Seeing that he had been fooled, A certain venerable heaved a sigh of relief and quickly changed the topic. It's good that you know. What do you plan to do next? No matter what, we have to enter the levitation layer first. Otherwise, we won't be able to find the enchantment and we'll be trapped here, said Yun Chujio. The levitation layer should be more dangerous. You have to be more careful, D. Biming instructed. Are you concerned about me? Are you attracted by my beauty and wisdom? So you fell in love with me? Hey, Shinjio said slyly. Chapter 5039. Do you have a way to get up there? The small silver snake's body suddenly turned pink and snorted coldly. Don't flatter yourself. I was just afraid that you would implicate me if something happened to you. Oh, so that's how it is. It seems that I was thinking too much. That's right. I'm just a poor little girl who no one loves. I'm used to it. Hey, Shinjio said in a desolate manner. A certain someone noticed Yun Chujio's depressed mood and his heart tightened. He quickly added, You don't have to say that. Actually, you're not that bad. You're still passable. Yun Chujio, you're the one who's passable. Your whole family is passable. Although she was complaining in her heart, she looked like she was about to cry and did not say anything. A certain amnesia snake naturally did not know what this fellow was up to and thought that she had really been hit by his words. He could not help but feel annoyed and anxious. Venerable one, I was just teasing you. Actually, you are very good-looking, very smart, very, very good, a certain one stammered. Yun Chujio shook her head and said with a sobbing voice, You are lying to me. You said that I was overthinking things. Obviously, you think that I am not worthy of you. I didn't mean that. A certain someone was about to continue to explain, but he saw a flash of cunningness in Yun Chujio's eyes. He immediately understood that he had been fooled again. He was so angry that he didn't say anything. Seeing that he had been exposed, Blackheart Geo didn't feel embarrassed at all. He said with a smile, Then what do you mean? Do you think I'm very cute? Do you not want to marry me? Do you think that all the women in the world are not as good-looking as me? A certain someone did not even look at her and went back into his sleeve pocket. He was obviously angry. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. You are a tsundere. I can't control you anymore. If you want to be angry, then be angry. Anyway, you will be angry sooner or later. A certain someone thought that Yun Chujio would apologize and coax him with soft words. He did not expect Hei Shinjio to ignore him as if nothing had happened. A certain someone was so angry. However, he could not bring himself to go out again, so he could only cultivate in his sleeve pocket. He thought to himself that he would deal with this sinister and cunning ugly girl after he recovered his strength. Yun Chujio saw that the levitating layer that reached into the clouds was actually suspended in the air. She could not help but click her tongue in wonder. How did this happen? Wasn't this the legendary pavilion in the air? Moreover, these floating layers were not just 18-story pavilions. The area above was very large, and each floor was comparable to an imperial city. Yun Chujio shouted to the top, Hey, is there anyone breathing up there? No one spoke up, but that was also true. Mu Zian and the others should have already entered the floating layer. Perhaps they had already reached the second floor. Everyone looked at the levitation layer and sighed. The rope ladder had already been put away, and it was suspended in the air below. They had no way to climb up, and it was forbidden to fly here. There was no way for them to go up. Lan Luoyen thought of Lan Luoshan putting away the rope ladder and could not help but curse. Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan, those two bastards really deserve to die. Not only did they secretly attack us, they even put away the rope ladder. They really want us to die. Lan Luoji and the others were also cursing, wishing they could tear Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan into pieces. Lan Luofang approached Yun Chujio and asked, Little Jiao, do you have a way to go up? Chapter 5040. The first level of the levitation layer. Yun Chujio heard Lan Luofang's question and giggled. How difficult is that? Lan Luoyen pouted. Anyone can talk big. What can you do? Can you grow wings and fly up? Yun Chujio glanced at her. Although I can't grow wings and fly up, I have ropes. Yun Chujio took out a bundle of rope as she spoke. This storage ring had everything in it. Naturally, she would prepare the necessary things like ropes. The mocking expression on Lan Luoyan's face became even more intense. What's the use of having a rope? Let's not talk about whether you can throw the rope so high. Even if you can throw it up, there's nothing on it that can fix the rope. Isn't it still useless? Although Lan Luofeng was dissatisfied with Lan Luoyan's attitude, she felt that what she said made sense. There was a rope in their storage rings, but the levitation layer was at least 30 meters above the ground. There was no way to fix the rope. Could it work? Yun Chujio did not say anything. She just smiled and took out the rolling pin. She tied the rope to one end of the rolling pin and stuck the rolling pin into the ground. As the Lan family members inhaled, the rolling pin grew taller and taller. It was even taller than the first layer of the levitation layer. Lan Luofeng asked weakly, "Little Jiao, this pin is so thin. Can it bear our weight?" Yun Chujio shook her head. The longer the pin was, the weaker its power. It could not bear the weight of an adult. Lan Luofeng saw that Yun Chujio shook her head and denied it. She asked, "Then what do you plan to do?" "I'll let one of my helpers go up first and then pull us up," Yun Chujio said. Everyone looked at each other. Helper? What helper? Just as everyone was puzzled, they saw that Yun Chujio released a Xiaohei rat. It seemed to be of an unusually low rank. She couldn't be thinking of letting this little thing pull them up, right? What kind of joke was this? They could kill this weak little thing with one finger. Yun Chujio ignored their gazes and gave a few instructions to the Xiaohei rat. Then, the Xiaohei rat climbed up along the rolling pin. Xiaohei rat climbed to the top of the rolling pin. Seeing that there was nothing unusual inside, it reported the news to Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio then leaned the rolling pin against the levitating layer. Xiaohei rat untied the rope and jumped onto the levitating layer. Yun Chujio immediately grabbed one end of the rope and motioned Xiaohei to pull her up. Lan Luoyan could not hold it in anymore. "Yun Chujio, are you crazy? How can that little thing be pulled up?" Everyone's faces were filled with shock. Oh my God, that little thing actually had such great strength? This was too unbelievable. After Yun Chujio was pulled up, the Xiaohei rat also pulled the others up to the floating layer. While everyone was shocked, they started to look at their surroundings. They were in a small square. The green stone slabs on the ground were exactly the same as the ones on the streets, but the patterns were more complicated and exquisite. Yun Chujio put away Xiaohei and the dough stick and said, "Let's go in and take a look." Everyone knew what to do and did not ask about Xiaohei and the dough stick. They were more afraid of Yun Chujio. After leaving the square, everyone realized that the floating floor was no different from the streets. The only difference was that the pavilions on the side of the road were more intact and more exquisite. Chapter 5041 Iron Rooster becomes a spirit. Yun Chujio thought to herself that the celestials living in this floating floor were probably of a higher level than the celestials living in the lower levels. Moreover, the higher the level, the higher the level. This was also normal. There were different levels in every place. Even the celestials were not exempt from it. As the buildings here were more well preserved, the plaques on the buildings were basically still there. However, they were all written in ancient characters. Hei Xinjiu only knew a little of the ancient characters, but Buttface did. So, Buttface eagerly explained to Yun Chujio. "Little fairy, the plaque on the left says Cloud Weaving Manor, and the plaque on the right says Rouge House. Most of them are satin houses, and one sells rouge powder." Out of curiosity, Yun Chujio entered the Cloud Weaving Manor on the left. It was empty, and she didn't know if it had been destroyed or if it had been taken away by someone from the previous trial. The Rouge building on the right was in the same situation. There was only an empty room left. Yun Chujio entered a few more pavilions, and it was the same situation. "It seems that the barrier to teleport out isn't on the first level," said Lan Luomu. Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows. "How do you know?" Lan Luomu took out something that looked like an array disc and said, "My grandfather gave this to me. It can sense teleportation barriers. My grandfather got this when he participated in the Divine Relic trial. It can sense a wide range, but there's no reaction at all. This means that the teleportation barrier at the exit isn't on this level. Lan Luomu naturally didn't plan to reveal that he had such a treasure, but now that they were all in the same boat, there was nothing to hide. After all, survival was more important. Yun Chujio was very satisfied with Lan Luomu's ability to adapt to the situation. She chuckled and said, "Since that's the case, then we won't waste time on the first level. Let's go find the entrance to the second level." Everyone easily found the second entrance in the center of the city. It was a flight of stairs that looked no different from ordinary stone steps. However, they found a lot of blood and 4 corpses under the stairs. Among the 4 corpses, 2 of them were wearing the Qi family's clothing. The other 2 were wearing the Zhuang family's clothing, and the other one was wearing the Mu family's clothing. When everyone saw the corpses and the mottled blood stains on the steps, their expressions immediately changed. At this moment, the sky had already darkened. Yun Chujio thought for a moment and decided to let everyone spend the night on the first level of the levitation layer. They would discuss countermeasures after daybreak. Everyone did not have any objections. They found a relatively spacious empty space nearby to rest, but all of them had solemn expressions on their faces. There were so many people from the Mu family, but they had actually lost 4 people on this step. Could they safely pass through this step? Yun Chujio did not treat her stomach unfairly at all times. She slowly began to roast the meat. Everyone from the Lan family was speechless. What kind of situation was this? They actually had the mood to roast meat. However, when the aroma of the roasted meat spread, everyone could not help but swallow their saliva. They had been eating fasting pills for the past few days. Now that they smelled the aroma of the barbecued meat, they naturally had a craving for it. Yun Chujio smiled and said, "Do you want to eat it? A skewer of barbecued meat costs 100 high-grade spirit stones. You won't be at a loss if you buy it for 100 spirit stones. You won't be fooled. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Everyone from the Lan family was so angry that their noses almost went crooked. This fellow was simply an iron rooster that had turned into a spirit. Even at this time, he still wanted to make money. Chapter 5042. Do you all hate me? Everyone glared at Yun Chujio. Previously, they had no choice but to pay to rent a spiritual beast. Now, there was no need to give her money for the sake of food. Hence, they turned their heads away and did not say anything. Only Lan Luofeng came over and said, "Little Gio, with our relationship, there's no need to talk about money, right? If we talk about money, it would hurt our relationship." Yun Chujio pouted and stuffed a piece of roasted meat to her. This girl's skin was getting thicker and thicker. She didn't know who she learned it from. Lan Luoyan saw the situation and said fiercely, "Eat, eat, eat. All you know is to eat. If we can't find the strange part of the stairs, we'll be trapped here to death." Yun Chujio said lazily, "What are you worried about? Mu Zian and those idiots can find a way to get up, so naturally we can too. They sacrificed 4 lives to find a way." Lan Luoyan said angrily. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "We can do that too. You will be the first one to go up tomorrow." "You, how dare you?" Lan Luoyan stood up abruptly. She was both angry and afraid. If Yun Chujio really insisted on doing this, no one would speak up for her. After all, her life was at stake now. Who could control who? There is nothing in this world that I don't dare to do. If you don't want to be the first one to go up, come over and help me roast the meat, Yun Chujio said with a chuckle. Lan Luoyan bit her lips, but she still chickened out. Gritting her teeth, she helped He Xinjiu roast the meat. She cursed in her heart, "Eat, eat, eat, it's better to eat to death. Come, everyone, let's eat together. I was just playing with you. I'm such a generous person, why would I want your money?" He Xinjiu said with a smile. The crowd pursed their lips. "You're generous? Do you believe it?" However, the crowd still gathered around. Whether it was the bright fire or the hot roasted meat, they could relax for a moment. They often participated in some trials, but this was the first time they encountered such a dangerous situation. They could hardly relax for a moment. When they were almost done eating, Yun Chujio asked lazily, Do you hate me a lot? Everyone's faces stiffened. They had never expected Hei Shinjio to ask such a question. On second thought, it seemed that Yun Chujio did not bother them at all. Why did they want to kill her? Lan Luoyen said hatefully, "We are the ones with the surname Lan. You are a foreigner from a lower continent. Why should our ancestors look at you differently? Everyone, you deserve to be hated. You deserve it." Yun Chujio continued, "I know that the Lan family has never rejected internal strife, so all of you want to trample others under your feet. I'm also an outsider, and I've even caught the eye of the old ancestor, so all of you can't wait to leave. This isn't a big deal, I understand." Everyone was dumbfounded. What did this troublemaker mean? It's just that people have to know their limits. You're not my match, so you can't beat me. Moreover, I don't plan to do anything to you. You really don't have to be my enemy. If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have shown up. I wouldn't have saved you. After all, we all have the blood of the Lan family. There's no one closer to us in this world. Do you think it's fun to fight among ourselves? Chapter 5043. Do I owe you a grudge? Hearing Yun Chujio's words, the members of the Lan family felt a little complicated. Their thoughts were deeply rooted, so they naturally would not change just because of Yun Chujio's words. It was just that in this environment, hearing these words, they inexplicably felt that they had more reliance and trust in the people around them. That's right, compared to the people of the MU family, these people here at least had the same blood flowing in their bodies. They were family. Lan Luoyen bit her lips. Even if what you said makes sense, aren't Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan also members of the Lan family? They still stabbed us in the back. Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows. There are all kinds of birds in this forest. There will inevitably be a few scumbags. Don't worry, I will give you the chance to kill them personally. For a moment, no one said anything. Only the crackling sound of firewood could be heard. After a while, Lan Luoyen suddenly started to cry. At first, it was a suppressed cry, but in the end, it turned into a wail. Lan Luofang also started to sob. Although the others did not cry, they were all very depressed. The reason was very simple. They were afraid of death. There were 18 layers of levitation here. It was very likely that the teleportation enchantment would be set up on the 18th layer. Could they find the teleportation enchantment within the stipulated time limit? Lan Luoyen cried for a while and shouted fiercely, "Yun Chujio, tell me, do you think we can leave this place alive?" Yun Chujio revealed an extremely brilliant smile. "Of course. I still have a lot of things to do. Naturally, I won't stay in this lousy place." Everyone was stunned by Yun Chujio's smile. For the first time, they realized that this troublemaker was very good-looking. Lan Luoyen snorted coldly. "If you can really bring me out safely, I won't go against you in the future." Yun Chujio curled her lips. "You speak as if you can do anything to me. I remember that you're the one who gets beaten up every time, right?" Lan Luoyen was so angry that she almost vomited blood. However, after being rebuked by Hei Shinjio, she did not feel so sad anymore. Instead, she felt more at ease for some reason. Could it be that she needed to be rebuked? Also, if there's anything you need, just let me know. Lan Luoqing and the others also spoke up. Their meaning was basically the same as Lan Lumis. Yun Chujio nodded. "Don't worry, we will all leave this place alive. After all, the Lan family has never been cowards who leave our fate to fate." When everyone saw Yun Chujio's determined and confident gaze, they felt a strange emotion rise in their hearts. It was an emotion that could not be described with words. Worship? Trust? Envy? In short, at this moment, they truly recognized Yun Chujio's identity as the team leader. It was not because of the old ancestors' orders, nor was it because of Elder Tua's poison. It was simply because she was Yun Chujio. The little silver snake in his sleeve pocket snorted in his heart. This ugly girl really knew how to bewitch people's hearts. Since she was so eloquent, why didn't she apologize to him? Didn't she know that he was angry? He didn't care about her apology. He just wanted to give her a chance to repent. Yes, that was it. Hei Shinjio didn't know what a certain prideful person was thinking. She was very satisfied when she saw the members of the Lan family turn from a pile of loose sand into obedient babies. She arranged for Lan Luoji and Lan Luomu to be on night duty and then lay down on the blanket and fell asleep. After noticing that she had fallen asleep, Goei Butsao, which was hidden in its hair, hopped onto the ground. It's time for Go Weiba tale. Chapter 5044. The delightful Goei Batsao Goei Bakao's body was very small, and its spiritual energy fluctuation was very small. No one had noticed its existence. If Di Biming had not been so severely injured, perhaps he would have noticed it. However, he was very weak at the moment, so he did not notice Goei Bakao's movement. Goei Batsao jumped on the ground, feeling very good about itself. It liked the feeling of being alone in heaven and on earth. It was simply happy. That wretched girl thought that it was willing to stay shamelessly in her dantian. If it was not for the fact that it was absorbing the power of lightning, did she think that she would care about her? Pooey! Shameless! Guai Chao cursed Yun Chujio dozens of times in his heart. He felt that the depression of the past few days had suddenly disappeared. Guai Chao was so bold as to jump around on Lan Luofang and the others' faces, but the people in their dreams did not notice it at all. Guai Chao placed a leaf on his waist and was extremely proud. A bunch of idiots. However, after jumping around for a while, there was nothing new about it. It remembered the steps that led to the second level of the levitation layer that it saw during the day, and decided to take a look. It quickly waved its leaves, and the entire plant flew up. Soon, it arrived at the bottom of the levitation layer steps. Under the moonlight, both the corpse next to the stairs and the blood stains on the stairs were particularly horrifying. However, Goei Butsao never knew what fear was. It jumped to the top of the first step, but nothing happened. It jumped to the top of the second step, but there was still nothing unusual. When it jumped to the third step, countless spiritual arrows shot out from the bottom of the step. Goei Butsao didn't care about this at all. Its size was very small, and as long as it was careful, those arrows wouldn't be able to hit it. Goei Butsao continued to jump forward. There was nothing unusual on the fourth and fifth steps, but on the sixth step, vines made of spiritual power grew out, and Goei Butsao easily dodged them. Next, Goei Butsao found a pattern. It would be attacked every 2 steps, which were all attacks made of spiritual power. If it was a cultivator, they might be able to easily dodge or defend at the beginning. However, because there were too many steps, it was inevitable that they would be attacked later. Fortunately, Goei Butsao was very light and agile. It jumped with all its strength and jumped to the second levitation layer. Goei Butsao thought to himself, this move is quite vicious. At this point, everyone would feel that victory was within reach, so they would lower their guard and fall to their deaths easily. Thinking of this fellow proudly waved its leaves. So what if it was sinister? Once Goei Butsao appeared, who would contend with it? This fellow felt that it had almost finished investigating. When the sun rose, it would be able to take credit from the smelly girl. Although the language wasn't fluent, that stinky girl was still considered smart. It gestured with its hands, and perhaps she would be able to understand. Thinking of this, Goei Butsao prepared to return the way it came. At this moment, Goei Butsao caught a glimpse of something that seemed to be in the fault of the stairs that had disappeared earlier. Oh my, could it be the formation plate? If it destroyed the formation plate, wouldn't the formation on the stairs be gone? In that case, the stinky girl and the others could come up unimpeded. At that time, even if the stinky girl found out that it had a small treasury, it could still take credit for this matter. Chapter 5045 was probably in trouble again. Goei Butsao felt that it was too smart. Therefore, before the steps recovered, it directly jumped into the fault of the steps. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to find the formation plate inside the fault, because this formation plate was different from the formation plate that was popular outside. It was very small. If it was not for the moonlight reflecting a ray of light, and because of Goei Bakao's small size and low visibility, they would not have been able to find it. Goei Butsao looked at the disc array and proudly shook its leaves. It only needed to dig out the bead in the center of the disk array, and the array would naturally stop. Therefore, Goeibatsao enlarged its body and used its leaves to dig out the bead. However, the bead was fixed quite firmly, and Goeibakeo's leaves were not very flexible, so it took a long time to dig it out. While Goeibatsao was busy, the missing steps reappeared, and Goeibatsao was unfortunately sealed inside the steps. Goeibatsao was so angry. It could only give up on digging the bead, wanting to shrink its body and jump out. Unfortunately, it discovered that after the steps returned to their original position, the place was sealed by a barrier, and it could not get out. Goeibatsao could not help but feel sorrowful. Was there any grass in this world that was more miserable than it? What did it do wrong to suffer such abuse? In its anger, Goeibakeo's little temper flared up. Fuck, it should just directly destroy this broken formation disk. As long as the formation disk was destroyed, this barrier would naturally cease to exist. It could then get out. Hence, Goeibatsao began to beat the formation disk frantically with its leaves in an attempt to destroy the formation disk. Coincidentally, its leaves struck the weak spot of the formation disk and cracks began to appear on the formation disk. Eventually, it completely shattered and the enchantment disappeared. Goeibatsao was very pleased with itself. Little fellow, you still want to go against Goeibatsao? Damn you. This fellow was just about to shrink its body and jump out of the gap when it realized that the place it was at began to shake violently. Goeibatsao was dumbfounded. What was going on? What happened? Before it could recover its senses, it heard the sound of heavy objects landing on the ground. It immediately had an ominous premonition in its heart. The steps that led from the first level to the second level were no longer there. Instead, there was a pile of ruins on the ground. Goeibatsao could feel that God was malicious towards it. It didn't do anything. Why did it become like this? Goeibatsao suddenly trembled. If the little brat knew that it was done by it, it would probably turn into dried grass. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from afar. Goeibatsao knew that the loud sound must have woken up Yunchujio and the others. It trembled even more violently and hurriedly hid in the bushes nearby. Very soon, Yunchujio and the others arrived. Everyone stared at the ruins in front of them with their mouths agape. What happened? Why is this staircase suddenly damaged? It was fine during the day, how did it suddenly become like this? Lan Luofeng said in fear. Could it be that Mu Zian and the others damaged it? How can we go up without the steps? Lan Luoji said in panic. Lan Luomu frowned. It shouldn't be them. After all, they don't know that we're not dead yet. Besides, they don't need to spend so much effort to destroy the steps. Go Weiba in the grass was scared and proud. No matter how these people guessed, they wouldn't guess that it was Go Weiba who did it. Chapter 5046, Hercules Yunchujio did not pay attention to the discussions of the crowd. Instead, she began to rummage through the ruins. Everything would leave a trace. Perhaps they could find clues from within. Seeing this, the crowd stopped their discussions and helped Yunchujio rummage through the ruins. Very soon, Lan Luofeng pointed at a bead on the ground and said, "What is this?" Everyone's gaze fell on the bead on Lan Luofeng's finger. It was a lustrous and shiny bead, but it was not a false bead. Everyone could feel the rich spiritual energy emitted from it, and it was even denser than supreme-grade spirit stones. Yunchujio walked up and picked up the bead, looked at it, and said, "It looks like something similar to spirit stones, but the spiritual energy contained in it is denser and pure. If I'm not wrong, this bead should have been embedded in the array disk. Let's look for it and see if we can find something similar to the array disk." Goeibatsao in the grass shook its leaves. This stupid girl was really smart to be able to guess it. The group quickly found a few fragments of the array disk in the ruins. Although they looked different from the array disk outside, they could still tell from the ancient runes on it. It seems that the array board exploded for some reason, resulting in the destruction of the steps, Yunchujio guessed. Everyone felt that what she said made sense, but why did the array board suddenly explode? Little Gio, now that the steps are destroyed, how do we go up? Lan Luofeng asked worriedly. Yunchujio smiled lightly. This isn't a difficult matter. Previously, we went up to the first floor the same way we went up to the second floor. I was worried that there was something wrong with the stairs, so I didn't dare to use the previous method. Now that the stairs have been destroyed, there's nothing to worry about. After daybreak, we'll use the old method to go to the second floor of the levitation layer. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that. From the looks of it, it was a good thing that the stairs were destroyed. Guai Chao, who was in the bushes, was stunned for a moment before thinking smugly, As it had said, how could Go Weiba, who had such a powerful dogtail, cause trouble? Just look at it, it had unintentionally achieved a miraculous feat. It was simply a piece of cake. Yun Chujio felt the smug mood of the Guai Chao in her dantian. She was puzzled what was the point of it being smug. Is it crazy? If it was not afraid that Yun Chujio would discover that it had hidden a small treasury, it would definitely jump in front of Hei Shinjio to clear its name. However, it was afraid that Yun Chujio would discover it and it would never be able to go out again, so it did not dare to do anything. Goei Batsao flew to Yun Chujio's hair when Yun Chujio was not paying attention. After daybreak, Yun Chujio asked the rolling pin to send Xiao Hei to the second level of the levitation layer and then pulled everyone up. The second level of the levitation layer did not look much different from the first level. Lan Luomu took out something that looked like a disc array and tried it. Then, he shook his head at Yun Chujio. Seeing this, Yun Chujio knew that there was no teleportation barrier on this level. She didn't feel surprised. She had a vague feeling that the teleportation barrier would be placed on the highest level of the levitation layer. Thus, Yun Chujio led everyone to the stairs leading to the third level. However, after walking for about an hour, everyone's expressions became serious. Chapter 5047, Woman Yun Chujio and the others found a lot of blood on the ground, and they also found 2 corpses. When they saw the miserable state of the corpses, they could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. There were countless deep scratches on the bodies of the 2 corpses. Their faces had been scratched so much that their original appearances could not be seen. What was even more puzzling was that the 2 corpses were naked on the top, but their bottoms were covered by red gauze. Yun Chujio originally wanted to go up and examine them, but she guessed that the 2 of them were also naked on the bottom. She was afraid that some jealous person would make a scene, so she asked Lan Luomu to go up and examine them. Yun Chujio was afraid that the corpses were poisonous, so she specially brought a gas mask for Lan Luomu and gave him a pair of heavenly silk gloves. Lan Luomu looked at the 2 things. Although he had never seen them before, his mind was sharp, so he immediately guessed the effect. Therefore, after putting them on, he resisted the nausea and examined the corpses. Yun Chujio, Lan Luoyen, and Lan Luofang averted their gazes so as not to hurt their eyes. A moment later, Lan Luochen covered the red gauze once again and said, "These 2 people's bottoms are also naked, and yes, they were seriously injured. I guess that the cause of their death was not due to external injuries. It seems that they were sucked dry of their essence and blood." Seeing that the 2 of them were not wearing any clothes, everyone had already guessed a thing or 2. Therefore, they were not surprised to hear Lan Luomu's words. However, the expression on their faces became even more solemn. At this moment, Lan Luofang found some pieces of clothes at the side. These clothes should belong to the Qi family. It seems that these 2 people should be from the Qi family. Yun Chujio's expression did not change much. She looked at the wounds on the corpses and said, "These 2 people should have been dead for at least 3 days. Mu Zian and the others should have already left the second level by now. Moreover, since these 2 bodies have not been eaten, it means that there are no wild beasts in the second level." Lan Luoyen said with a sobbing voice, "Although there are no wild beasts, I'm afraid there are things that are more terrifying than wild beasts." Yun Chujio glanced at her. "Don't worry. That thing probably only likes men. Why are you worried?" As soon as Yun Chujio said that, Lan Luoyen stopped crying, while Lan Luomu and the others shivered. "Alright, maybe that thing has already been killed by Mu Zian and the others. Let's continue on our way," Yun Chujio said indifferently. Seeing that her tone was so relaxed, everyone's mood eased up a little. Actually, Yun Chujio was also very worried. However, as the leader, if she appeared to be very worried, the people below would be even more anxious. Therefore, she had to stabilize the morale of the army. Not long after the group walked out, a woman in red walked towards them. As they got closer, the group also saw the woman's appearance clearly. Her appearance was naturally incomparably beautiful. Moreover, her actions were intentionally or unintentionally charming, making people blush and their hearts beat. Of course, Lan Luomu and the others had already seen the two tragic corpses. At this moment, there was only fear in their hearts, not the slightest bit of infatuation. Everyone's faces were solemn, and cold sweat started to appear on their foreheads. This woman was most likely the murderer of the previous two people. Was she a human or something else? Everyone subconsciously wanted to run back, but they heard Yun Chujio say with a smile, "Auntie in front, the men here are all eunuchs. Don't waste your time. Hurry up and find someone else." Lan Luomu and the others, a certain person in the sleeve bag. Chapter 50-48. The two of them should stay. The woman was obviously shocked by Yun Chujio's words. She stopped in her tracks and then smiled seductively. "Little sister, your eyesight isn't good at such a young age. I think it's useless to keep your eyes. Why don't you dig them out? Aunt, don't talk about these useless things. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, if our companions come back, you won't survive." Yun Chujio said tentatively. The woman sneered. "They have already gone to the 3rd level. Why would they come back to save you? Previously, they volunteered to leave 2 people for me to play with. If you do as I say, I will let the others leave. Otherwise, all of you can stay here." Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Mu Zian and the others actually volunteered to leave the 2 people behind? They were really ruthless. However, if they had not been dealt with by Yun Chujio previously, perhaps they would have done the same. After all, nothing was more important than their own lives. Yun Chujio did not only think of this. Since this woman was willing to offer to let them leave, it was most likely because this woman was not that strong. Otherwise, wouldn't it be better if they all stayed? The woman saw that Yun Chujio did not speak and thought that she had agreed to her suggestion. She pointed at Lan Luomu and Lan Luocheng and said, "I think the 2 of them are not bad. Let them stay." Lan Luomu and Lan Lucheng's expressions immediately changed. That troublemaker would not abandon them, right? At this moment, Yun Chujio chuckled and said, "Aunt, this bluff won't work on me. I don't care what you are, these people are my people. I won't leave any of them for you." The woman misunderstood Yun Chujio's words and thought that she meant that Lan Luomu and the others were her men. She couldn't help but sneer, "You little girl, you have no breasts, no body, and you have a big appetite. If you don't agree with me, none of you can think of leaving." As soon as the girl finished speaking, she found that the little girl who had been fooling around was emitting a strong murderous aura. Yun Chujio's face was cold. "Who the fuck are you calling having no breasts? Who are you calling having no body? You ugly freak, you old hag. They'll kill you." Hei Shinjio, who had been stepped on by the cat's tail, was not in the mood to argue with the girl anymore. She immediately waved her paw and said, "Release the spiritual beast to take care of her. Since she is willing to offer conditions, she is not that powerful. Don't be afraid of her." Hearing that, Lan Luomu and the others felt that what she said made sense. Although this woman was strange, she was not necessarily capable. Therefore, they all released their spiritual beasts to attack the woman. The woman snorted and her body suddenly changed into a huge white fox with 7 huge tails behind her. However, his reminder was a little late. Lan Luoqing and Lan Luoji had already fallen for it. The 2 people's eyes suddenly became dull, and their bodies couldn't help but move forward. Yun Chujio took out a large awl and threw it to Lan Luofeng. Stab. Lan Luofeng saw the awl that was as thick as a pinky finger, and swallowed her saliva. It seemed that little Nine was still kind to her last time, and only used needles to stab her. Lan Luofeng took the big awl and gave it to Lan Luoqing and Lan Luoji. She was secretly happy. They had mocked her many times before. It was really satisfying. Lan Luoqing and Lan Luoji recovered from the pain and did not have time to say anything. They quickly joined the battle. The white fox gradually fell into a disadvantage. Just when everyone was relieved, the white fox's aura suddenly soared and another tail grew out from its back. Chapter 5049 scared you to death. Not good, it's actually an 8-tailed fox. Everyone be careful. Lan Lumis' voice was slightly trembling. Although the 7-tailed charm fox and the 8-tailed fox only lacked one tail, the difference between the two could be said to be heaven and earth. Fortunately, this woman was not a 9-tailed fox, or else there would really be no way to survive. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and shouted, "Hey, Aunt, I advise you not to be brave. If you forcefully use 8 tails, you might not be able to preserve your appearance." The woman gritted her teeth and said, "Stupid girl, you're courting death. It doesn't matter even if you do that. As long as I pick up a few more men, I'll naturally be able to restore my looks." Hearing that, Yun Chujio immediately understood that her guess was right. This fox should have forcefully increased her strength. As long as she delayed it for a while, it would not be able to hold on anymore. Therefore, this fellow said with a smile, "Aunt, it's useless even if you act tough. Can you still transform into 9 tails if you continue to act tough? There's a 9-tailed fox in my spiritual pet. If I let it out, you'll be scared to death." The woman suddenly stopped and took a few steps back. "What did you say?" Yun Chujio thought that she was afraid and said proudly, "Are you afraid? Get out of here quickly, or I'll let out the 9-tailed fox to scare you to death." The woman snorted coldly. 9-tailed fox? You really dare to say that? Show me if you have the ability." The Lan family members were speechless when they saw Hei Shinjio. Even if you lied, there must be a limit. 9-tailed fox. It was rare to see a fox with 4 tails, okay? Yun Chujio slowly summoned Xiao Hong and said, "See? I'm asking if you're afraid." The corners of the Lan family members' eyes twitched. Although the fire fox in front of them had grown 6 tails, it was still far from having 9 tails. Xiao Hong felt the contempt of the crowd. If she was not afraid that Yun Chujio would take care of it, she would have used the 9-tailed fox to show off. The woman sized up Xiao Hong and snorted, "Is this the 9-tailed fox you were talking about? This is the son of the 9-tailed fox. If you don't know your place, I will release the 9-tailed fox." Yun Chujio said with her arms crossed. Xiao Hong's heart was like a dog that was bickering. For no reason she had a father. The woman laughed mockingly. "Little girl, your words might be able to fool others, but to fool me? You really have the wrong plan. The 9-tailed fox's cultivation is superb. How could it be subdued by a little girl like you? Furthermore, do you know what my relationship with it is? It won't harm me at all." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and said deliberately, "Is the 9-tailed fox your son or your father?" The woman was so angry that she gritted her teeth. "The 9-tailed fox is my husband. Cut the crap and accept your death." Yun Chujio took out a bone and threw it in front of the woman. "Here, your husband." The woman saw that the bone suddenly turned into a human shape. She picked up the bone and took a few steps back in disbelief. This is impossible. Where did you get it?" Yun Chujio's eyes flashed. "I found it on a low-level continent. At that time, there was the skeleton of a 9-tailed fox, and it was locked with 6 10,000-year-old black iron chains. That 9-tailed fox only has a remnant soul left. It asked me to help it." "What favor?" The woman could not wait to ask. Chapter 5050. It was too kind. It said that it wanted to divorce its wife. It said that the most regretful thing it had ever done in its life was to marry a promiscuous wife. It was cuckolded all day long, and its head was turning green like a prairie. Hei Shinjio said with her lips curled. The woman screamed sharply, "What? How dare that bastard say that? It has been fooling around outside all day, so why should I guard it? Furthermore, we fox couples have always been playing by ourselves. Why does he have to divorce me? Ichimit, I know now. It must be you who is spouting nonsense. It's impossible for husband to say something like that." Yun Chujio spread her hands. Believe it or not, that's what he said. Furthermore, if he wasn't trying to avoid you, why did he run to a lower continent and get trapped by someone? What do you know? Isn't it the same as back then? The woman suddenly covered her head in pain. Back then, what happened back then? Why can't I remember anything? Yun Chujio frowned. This was not the first time she had seen such a situation. What kind of person could leave a mark in these ancient divine beasts or human spiritual senses and prevent them from telling the truth? What kind of terrifying power was this? The woman's expression became more and more painful. She even directly transformed into her beast form and kept rolling on the ground. Yun Chujio never knew what it meant to not take advantage of others when they were in danger. She immediately gestured to everyone and they all rushed forward. The eight-tailed celestial fox's spiritual sense was in great pain, so its strength was greatly reduced. In the end, it was killed by everyone. However, everyone was stunned to find that after the eight-tailed celestial fox died, there was no corpse on the ground. It actually disappeared into thin air. This should only be the remnant soul of the eight-tailed celestial fox. After all, if it was really an eight-tailed celestial fox, how could we be her mash? Yun Chujio said. Everyone thought about it and realized that it made sense. Although the eight-tailed celestial fox was slightly weaker than the divine beast, the strength of an adult eight-tailed celestial fox was also very terrifying. How could it be killed so easily? Although Yun Chujio had many questions in her heart, she was pressed for time and did not have the time to think carefully. She immediately led everyone to the stairs leading to the third floor. When they arrived, the sky had already darkened. Everyone decided to continue their journey after daybreak. When Goei Batsao heard this, she immediately felt that the opportunity to show off her skills had arrived. Didn't the little girl say it before? Destroying the steps was a good thing. Then it would go and destroy the steps at night to help the smelly girl. Goei Batsao simply felt that it was too kind. Thus, after Hei Shinjio fell asleep, Goei Batsao jumped towards the steps. According to its previous experience, it successfully destroyed the stairs again. Goei Batsao looked at the ruins on the ground and was quite proud. As the saying went, once the dog tail appeared, who could compete with it? Yun Chujio and the others were stationed not far from here, so they rushed over when they heard the noise. Why did the stairs collapse again? Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Lan Luomu said in surprise. Yeah, it's really strange. Every time when we were resting, the stairs would be destroyed, Lan Luoji echoed. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. What on earth was going on? She ordered the group to search through the ruins and found another bead and fragments of the formation plate. It was almost the same as the previous stairs. Chapter 50-51, Goibatsao, Little Gio, didn't you say it before? It's a good thing that the steps are ruined. Maybe the heavens are helping us. Lan Luofeng said. The Goei Batsao in the grass was quite proud. It was not the help of the heavens, but the meritorious service here. Yun Chujio did not say anything. There must be something wrong. She always felt that it was not that simple. At this moment, Yun Chujio's spiritual sense transmitted the excited voice of the rolling pin. Master, I have good news for you. I'm going to break through. Yun Chujio lost contact with the rolling pin before she could reply. To be exact, the weapon spirit of the rolling pin was in a state of hibernation. Yun Chujio, she took out the rolling pin and muttered, Baby rolling pin, grow longer. Grow longer. Rui rolling pin, grow longer and longer. My little cutie, grow longer. However, after repeating it more than 10 times, the rolling pin was still. The rolling pin. The Lan family members had a bad feeling. Lan Luofeng asked with a trembling voice, Little Gio, is there something wrong with your rolling pin? Yun Chujio showed an awkward but polite smile. It's not a big problem. It's just that it can't grow longer. Everyone. This wasn't a big problem? It was a big problem. If the rolling pin couldn't grow any longer, how were they supposed to get up there? The head of Goei Batsao in the haystack buzzed. It was over. It wasn't helping. It wasn't its fault. If anyone was to blame, it would be that damned rolling pin. When was a bad time to break through? Why did it have to break through at this time? What else could a rolling pin do if it broke through again? At most, it would turn into a burning pin. Besides, the smelly girl didn't know that it did it anyway. As long as it didn't say anything, only heaven and earth would know. What was there to be afraid of? With this thought, Goei Batsao immediately calmed down and hid in the bushes to watch the show. Everyone was frowning. The second level was more than 100 feet high from the third level. Without the rolling pin, how were they going to get up there? Yun Chujio didn't have any ideas for the time being. She had tried the little Wu Yun before, but the little Wu Yun couldn't fly at all. Clearly, it was restricted here. Just as Yun Chujio was frowning, the little silver snake in her sleeve pocket struggled a few times. Yun Chujio frowned. What was this pretty boy doing? Didn't he know that she was troubled? However, she still walked to the side and took out the small silver snake with her back facing the crowd. She said snappily, "Pretty boy, what do you want to do? Don't you know that I'm busy right now?" The small silver snake's vertical pupils immediately turned cold as it said in a cold tone, "I just want to remind you that the rolling pin is just a long rod. When you connect the bamboo pole or the wooden rod, the effect should be the same." When Yun Chujio heard that, she immediately slapped her thigh. That's right. She was really stupid. She had everything in her storage ring. Couldn't she just randomly find some bamboo poles to connect them together? When this fellow saw the little silver snake's cold gaze, he immediately said guiltily, "Gigolo, no, my dear Prince Charming, I was wrong. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. You're a grown-up and don't remember me for my past transgressions, so don't hold it against me." The little silver snake's gaze was still cold. This ugly girl was getting more and more overboard. He had to let her know what it meant to be a husband. Chapter 50-52 will be discussed later. Hei Shinjio saw that the little silver snake did not make a sound, and his eyes were still cold. She said flatteringly, "Male god, you are indeed my male god. Not only are you beautiful, but you are also extremely wise. Fortunately, I am not a man. Otherwise, I would be ashamed to live compared to you." The little silver snake still did not make a sound, but the coldness in his eyes had faded a lot. "My Prince Charming, it's a good thing that you're by my side. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to think of a solution even if I racked my brains. You're really too smart." The coldness in the little silver snake's eyes had faded a lot, and only a little bit of its face remained. "You're such an outstanding man, but you're actually my fiancé. I'm so honored. Prince Charming, come, let's kiss." The silver snake saw Yun Chujio's pouty lips coming over and immediately slipped back into its sleeve pocket. It stuttered, "Next time, it won't happen again." Yun Chujio pursed her lips. "You're a tsundere. I can't control you." Although this fellow thought so in his heart, he said obediently on the surface, "I know. I'll definitely change my past in the future." The little silver snake pretended to be aloof and acknowledged, but its body was suffused with a faint pink color. He thought to himself, no matter what, the ugly girl had already admitted her mistake. As for the matter of Fu Gang, he should talk about it in the future. After Yun Chujio fawned on a certain someone, she returned to the place where everyone was gathered and explained Di Biming's method. Everyone was stunned at first, then they were overjoyed. That's right, they were really one-track-minded. They could totally use something else to replace the rolling pin. The Goei Batsao in the bushes also let out a sigh of relief. Let's see, wasn't the final result still good? That was why Go Weiba was a great fortune. It could always turn a disaster into a blessing. It was simply wonderful. At this time, it was almost dawn. Everyone was not in the mood to sleep anymore. They quickly tied the bamboo pole that Yun Chujio took out together. After finishing, Yun Chujio tested the sturdiness of the bamboo poles before putting Xiao Hei on it. However, to be on the safe side, she also placed a lot of gunny sacks underneath. The gunny sacks were filled with soft cotton. Everyone looked at the pile of gunny sacks with an interesting expression on their faces. This storage ring of the troublemaker was like a treasure chest. How could it contain so much cotton? They did not know that Hei Xinjiu had experienced too many things. As a precautionary measure, the storage ring could be said to have everything. Xiao Hei successfully jumped onto the third level of the levitation layer and pulled everyone up. The third level's building was obviously much more luxurious than the two lower levels. However, everyone was not too interested in it. They only wanted to find the teleportation enchantment at the exit as soon as possible. Therefore, when everyone learned from Lan Luomu that there was no portal on the third floor, they immediately rushed to the entrance to the fourth floor. However, they soon saw that there was a lot of blood on the blue stone in front of them, as well as a few corpses. What surprised everyone was that the cause of death of those corpses was actually the spiritual power of the cultivators. Could it be that the Mu family and others had an internal conflict? Lan Luoyan spat, "Dogs biting dogs, serves you right." As soon as she finished speaking, someone cried out in shock, What's wrong with you? Why do you look exactly like me? For you." Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw that the woman who spoke looked exactly like Lan Luoyan. Whether it was her appearance, voice, or expression, they were exactly the same. Chapter 50-53. Who is the fake? Lan Luoyan number 1's face was filled with anger. "You are the fake. I'm going to kill you." "Kill me? I'm going to kill you. How dare you pretend to be me? You must be tired of living." Lan Luoyan number 2 said, unwilling to be outdone. Everyone was dumbfounded. Why were there two Lan Luoyan? Lan Luomu and Lan Luoqing separated the two of them and then looked at Yun Chujio. "Captain, which of these two is real?" Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. Just as she was about to speak, another round of chaos broke out. Lan Luomu and the others had also turned into two. The scene was noisy, and some of them had already started fighting. Yun Chujio shouted sternly, "Stop! Whoever fights again will be a fake." However, a voice sounded beside her. "You bastard, how dare you pretend to be my little fairy Jio? Are you tired of living?" Yun Chujio turned her head and saw a woman who looked exactly like her standing beside her. She was scolding her with her hands on her waist, just like how she usually looked in the mirror. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Interesting, there are actually people who dare to pretend to be me in this world." The impostor curled his lips. "I wanted to give you these words. Where did you get the courage to pretend to be me? Shameless." For a moment, the scene was in chaos. Some people had already started to fight again. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. She had to quickly control the situation, or the consequences would be unimaginable. She looked at the impostor and directly struck out several bolts of lightning. Who would have thought that the impostor would also return Yun Chujio a few bolts of lightning? Yun Chujio's heart was shocked. This impostor's imitation was so real that it could even imitate a spiritual root. However, even if it could imitate, it probably wouldn't be able to imitate the small flame in her palm. When Yun Chujio thought of this, when she attacked again, it was directly mixed with the flame of the small flame. As expected, the impostor didn't think that Yun Chujio would actually have a small flame, and it was burned directly. At this moment, Yun Chujio had Xiao Hanio curse her. She took the opportunity when the impostor was staggering and killed him. However, she was surprised to find that after the impostor died, there was a pearl on the ground. It was actually a paranoia beast? After killing the impostor, Yun Chujio shouted, "Everyone stop. If anyone continues to attack, it means that he is an impostor." Hearing that, everyone stopped and stared at each other indignantly. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. How could she tell who was real and who was fake? Yun Chujio called the two Lan Luofang to the front and asked, "Each of you tell me something that only she and I know." Lan Luofang no. One said, "Little Jiao, I've cut down the immortal wood with you and found a simple and convenient way." Yun Chujio nodded. Only she and Lan Luofang knew this. This should be true. At this moment, Lan Luofang number 2 said, "Little Jiao, you and I killed a fox and a beast on the flat street. You even stabbed me with a needle." When Yun Chujio heard this, it was true. Only she and Lan Luofang knew this. Then the question was, who was the real one? Seeing that Yun Chujio was hesitating, Lan Luofeng #1 quickly said, "Little Jiao, I went to my grandfather's house previously. It was you who sent me a message, so I rushed back." Lan Luofeng #2 was not willing to be outdone. "Little Jiao, you were afraid that I would be in danger, so you gave me a lot of chili noodles. You even told me to run if I couldn't beat you." Yun Chujia's eyes flashed. She probably already knew who the imposter was. Chapter 5054 was exposed. The Lan Luofeng, who spoke later, was talking about what happened in Supreme City, so most of it was fake. However, to be on the safe side, Yun Chujio decided to test it again. Therefore, she said to Lan Luofeng #2, "I gave you a phoenix hairpin before, take it out and let me have a look." Lan Luofeng #2's face stiffened, and she said with a dry smile, "Little Jiao, I left it at home and didn't bring it over." Hearing this, Yun Chujio raised her hand and shot out several bolts of lightning. There were small flames mixed within. Seeing this, Lan Luofeng #1 also rushed forward to help. She even shouted, "Little Jiao is an iron rooster. Why would she give me a hairpin?" Yun Chujio, if she had known this would happen, she would have kept that fake. Lan Luofeng #2 was naturally not a match for Yun Chujio and Lan Luofeng. She was killed very quickly. Yun Chujio realized that these imposters were obviously good at mimicry, but in fact, their abilities were not that great. She looked at the rest of the people and curled the corners of her lips. "I have 10,000 ways to tell who is real and who is fake, so I advise you to take the initiative to leave. Otherwise, the previous two will end up like you." She did not know if she was scared by Yun Chujio's words, but 6 people immediately ran away. Yun Chujio did not chase after them, but shouted, "Tell your companions not to provoke me, or else one of them will die. I will make you extinct." It was unknown if it was an illusion, but everyone realized that the 6 people ran even faster. In fact, Yun Chujio had an even faster method, which was to let everyone summon the spirit beasts that she had rented to them previously. Those imposters naturally could not do it. However, it seemed that those imposters were very timid and actually ran away after a scare. Everyone be careful. Don't act alone, lest you are killed by someone and then pretend to be someone else, Yun Chujio said seriously. Everyone nodded in agreement. This supreme city was indeed strange. There was actually such an incredible beast. Lan Luofeng asked in puzzlement, "Little Jiao, the corpses that we saw earlier were all killed by cultivator spiritual power. What happened? Were they killed by those imposters?" Yun Chujio shook her head. "Those imposters aren't very capable. It's highly likely that they were imposters who instigated a rift or deliberately provoked a fight, causing Mu Zian and the others to have internal strife." The members of the Lan family couldn't help but feel some lingering fear. Fortunately, they had already submitted to Yun Chujio, so Yun Chujio gave the order and no one attacked anymore. Otherwise, there would probably be some casualties. When it was almost evening, everyone rushed to the center of the 3rd level. They did not find a step, but they saw an old man with triangular eyes. "San Jiaoyan." The old man looked at everyone and then said, "You want to go to the 4th level of the levitation layer?" Lan Luomu and the others did not say anything and looked at Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio said with a smile, "Yes, we want to go to the 4th level of the levitation layer. If you can meet my conditions, I will send you up. Otherwise, you can only stay in the 3rd level," said the old man. "Oh, what conditions?" Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows and asked. "I don't have any other hobbies. I just like young and beautiful women. You only need to keep one woman as my concubine, and I will let you up." As the old man spoke, he looked at Lan Luoyen and Lan Luofeng with malicious intent. Chapter 5055. Kill Lan Luoyen and Lan Luofeng were embarrassed and annoyed by his gaze. They wished they could just kill him. However, Yun Chujio had not spoken yet, so they could not make a move. Yun Chujio laughed lightly. "Did the previous group of people leave anyone for you?" The old man's face revealed a hint of perversity. "Of course. However, that little girl could not take it anymore and was already played to death by me." Yun Chujio thought to herself that Mu Zian and the others had used human lives to pave the way. She wanted to see how they would climb up after all their people had died. I like people with good figures. Let's keep her. The old man pointed at Lan Luoyen. Lan Luoyen was about to go crazy from anger. She cursed, "You old shameless man. Dream on." The old man let out a strange laugh. "No matter how you curse, you're still my people. Because without me, you won't be able to find the way up. You can only die trapped on the 3rd floor." Yun Chujio looked at the sky. If they held on tight, they could reach the 4th floor before it was completely dark. Therefore, they did not have the patience to deal with the old man. Therefore, she said, "Kill him." The old man could not believe his ears. While resisting the attacks of the crowd, he shouted in exasperation, "If you kill me, you won't be able to find the way up." Goe Batsao, who was hiding in Yun Chujio's hair, shook its leaves. What an idiot! The stupid girl did not need any stairs at all. However, there were no stairs here, so there was no place for Go Weiba to use its tail. When the old man saw that the crowd was really going to kill him, he did not know what method he used to disappear on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already dozens of feet away. The old man said coldly, "What a bunch of people who don't know life and death. I want to see how you guys are going to go up." Lan Luoyen was about to chase after him, but Yun Chujio stopped her. "Don't fall for it. If you are alone, those imposters might take advantage of the situation and enter. Don't bother with him." Lan Luoyen stomped her feet angrily. "Then we will let this old pervert have it easy? I can't wait to kill him." Yun Chujio chuckled. "They're just a bunch of pitiful creatures. Why bother with him? Let's go up before the sky turns completely dark." When the old man heard Yun Chujio's words, he could not help but be stunned. Then, a cold smile appeared on his face. Yun Chujio did the same thing. She propped up the bamboo pole and sent Xiao Hei up. The old man pursed his lips. What was the use of getting such a small thing up there? Could it be that they wanted it to fix the rope somewhere? Then they had made a mistake. There was no place on the rope that could fix the rope. Yun Chujio had long thought of this. Hence, she let the others go up first while she stayed at the end. Seeing that Yun Chujio was the only one left, the old man said with a fake smile, "Little girl, although your figure is not that good, your looks are not bad, so you can stay." Yun Chujio was once again stepped on by the cat's tail, so she was naturally not in a good mood. She sneered, "Really? That depends on whether you have the ability." Yun Chujio directly summoned Little Slut number 2 to Little Slut number 9. 8 flying swords suddenly flew out and all of them stabbed at the old man. At the same time, Yun Chujio shot out several bolts of lightning and several small purple needles. There were also small flames mixed in between them. Goe Batsao was so anxious. Why didn't this stupid girl let it go? If it was let out, wouldn't it be able to save up some money again? Chapter 50-56 Goe Batsao lost its way. The old man did not put Yun Chujio in his eyes at all, so for a moment, he was confused by her endless tricks. Each of these tricks was more and more rare. He had never seen them before. Therefore, before he could even use his supernatural power, he was killed just like that. Yun Chujio picked up the Wanzhu on the ground and was dragged up by Xiao Hei. Goe Batsao thought angrily, "That old thing is really useless. He was actually killed just like that. Why don't you just hop around for a while longer? Maybe the smelly girl will let him out." However, Goe Batsao soon lost the mood to complain because it was stunned by the situation on the 4th level. Yun Chujio and the others were also stunned. Even in their dreams, they never thought that the 4th level of the levitation layer would be so beautiful. The ground was covered with exotic flowers and plants. There were carved beams and picturesque buildings. There were also wisps of clouds and mist floating around. Under the setting sun, it was exactly the same as the fairyland they had imagined. Lan Luofang said hesitantly, "It's so beautiful. It's really the same as the fairyland." The others also chimed in. Although the 3rd level was luxurious, it was still tainted by the worldly aura. The 4th level was different. It had an extraordinary feeling. Just as everyone was sighing, Yun Chujio said faintly, Don't be fooled by appearances. Be careful. Everyone's hearts trembled and they immediately became vigilant. For the sake of being careful, Yun Chujio decided to rest at the same place and set off the next day at dawn. As the situation was unknown, Yun Chujio specially arranged for Lan Luoqing, Lan Luoji, and Lan Luomu to be on guard at night. When the Guai Chao in Yun Chujio's hair saw that the night was getting dark, she could not help but jump onto the ground again, preparing to walk around. This guy left the small square where everyone was resting and went to a bush of flowers in front. When this guy saw the bright flowers, his face was full of disdain. A group of coquettish bitches. How could they be as reserved and dignified as Go Wei Ba Tail? This fellow thought as he hopped to the nearest pavilion. This was an extremely exquisite pavilion. There was a plaque hanging on the front door. Of course, Goei Batsao was illiterate and did not recognize it at all. Goei Batsao was not interested in these things. It ran from room to room. It was surprised to find that the things inside were actually perfectly preserved. It was as if everything had been sealed by time. Although Goei Batsao was quite intelligent, it was also a little clever. It could not understand things that were too complicated, and it was too lazy to think about it. Seeing that it was not interested in anything, it wanted to leave. However, it found that it was lost. No matter how it turned, it could not turn out. It even looked at the direction of the moon in the sky, but it still could not turn out. Goei Batsao could not help but feel sad. It was over. It was trapped here. Although it was only formed from spiritual power and not the original form of the Guai Chao, this little treasury was very difficult to gather. It was simply a waste of God's gift to be trapped here. The next morning, everyone washed up and began to set off. The Guai Chao in Yun Chujio's Dantian was very conflicted. Should it remind the stinky girl not to enter that courtyard? If the stinky girl entered the courtyard, she might be able to save its little treasury. However, doing so seemed to be a little unorthodox. Some of it was not worthy of its lofty grass grid. Before the Guai Chao could think of a plan, Yun Chujio and the others had already discovered the pavilion. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.